we love our Subarus, don't we? Whether you call it a Subi, a Scooby, Subaru, it doesn't matter. Whatever you call yours, great. So tonight's session, or whatever the time of the day is in your part of the world, questions and answers about mods, tuning, technical issues, problems, engine lights, mapping, ECU software, anything Subaru related. Going to go through. If I know the answer, I'll let you know what my thoughts are, what I think the answer is. If you're new here, welcome. Say hi, say where you're from. It's quite wild to see how far afield this live stream goes. Seems that there's a love of Subarus all around the world, which is awesome. Ask questions in the live chat, chat amongst yourselves, just hang out basically. We don't bite. I'll try my best to answer any questions that come across. If you put a Q at the beginning, it just makes me able to pick out a question and answer it when the time is right. If you're watching on replay, thank you for watching on replay. Again, put your questions in the comments and I will reply to every single one. Before I start answering questions and to give you a chance to ask them, let me give you an insight as to what's been happening so far this week for me. Been busy as it always is. Some beautiful Subarus in the dyno cell and in the workshop. You may have seen Alex's VA STI and the anti-lag flames that we got on the dyno. Was that yesterday? Put it out on a YouTube short. So if you haven't seen it, watch that. Quite cool, the flames. It sounds epic. So volume up. You'd seen the defies that I put into Stevens Forester STI. Also on a short video. I've also almost finished building the new engine for the Forester STI, so there will be a short video coming up, just going through that process, and hopefully that will go into the car very shortly. Just got to sort out a couple of small issues before it's ready to go in and live again. Also got some new designs professionally done for t-shirts and hoodies. I don't like selling on the live stream, but I do make a small commission out of those. So any sales, I do get some income, which helps offset the cost of the live streaming software and other things as well. So apologies for selling, but check out the t-shirts. They are, I think they're pretty cool, but I'm biased. Check them out, see what you like. They are on the channel homepage, and I will put a link in the description as well. Also, if you have any ideas for videos, I've got hundreds of ideas of my own. I've been a Subaru owner for 23 years, so I kind of know what people want to know or what people want to ask. It's just having the time available to do it. But if you've got a really good idea for what you would like me to cover in a video, pop it in the live chat or in the comments, may be better, and I'll do my best to accommodate it and do a video on it. So hopefully there'll be some questions. If not, I'll just keep rambling. Alright, so I can see we've got a few of the usuals here. Mel, Tom, Cooper K, Manuel, Jan. A boiler or a rice boiler. Yeah, okay. Neil Brown. Right, got a few questions coming in. Right, okay. Right, if you're not aware, I run an academy on here as well for tuning. It's like a hand-holding service where I kind of advise people to do lots more videos, really detailed videos. sort of extended versions of the public videos where I'm going through everything that I change in a map, showing it real time in a lot of cases. But the Academy, you know, there's members from all over the world. Hopefully the guys find good value out of it. They're learning to map their own cars, and I'm helping them. So if you wanted to check that out, there is a link underneath all of my videos which says join. Go in there, and it's the Academy member level or higher, which will get you in there and get the access to the Discord server and the other videos. Right. Right, okay. Right, so questions. These sessions are normally quite busy, so if you've got a question, get it in early, because you stand a very good chance of getting it answered. If it's in the last 5 minutes of mad rush, then sometimes I cut it off at the end, because I tend to keep this at no more than an hour. Because my throat can't cope with talking. I don't normally talk this much. I'm normally in a car on a laptop. Right, so okay, first question from Matt Hilliam. I've had my RCM 340 pump die in less than 500 miles. Not a surprise. Not saying there's anything wrong with the RCM 340, but a lot of the 340 pumps don't seem to last very well. What in-tank pump do you recommend? Also want to run a swirl pot setup. What's your recommendation for an inline pump? Is 044 good? Yeah, an 044, it depends what power level you're after. If it's like beyond 500, then an 044 starts to struggle. If you're less than that, then you know 044 is absolutely fine. I saw that ICP released the Fuji Racing twin in-tank, or a twin swirl pot and sort of combined fuel tank thing today, so that might be worth looking at. With the swirl pot, then you could just run a 255 fuel pump in the tank. That was all I ran in the tank on the race car with 850 brake, but that fed the swirl pot. And from that, I had a Fuel Lab Prodigy, which is a big beast of a fuel pump, which was awesome. But it used to twist the chassis when it switched on. Yeah, for an inline pump, 4.4 or Walbro Hellcat is also a very good pump. Right. Hopefully that answers that. But if you're running a swell pot, just a 255 will be absolutely perfect. Okay, right, the Mad Cyclist got an Impreza R Sport NA, won't rev over 4,500, have tried new lambda sensor, crank sensor, knock sensor, plugs, coils, MAF, neutral position switch, no management engine light, no error codes. Oh, you've been asking on Facebook for advice and everyone's come back with all the normal things and you spent a fortune. Is your speedo working? If your speedo isn't working, then it will limit it to sort of 4,300 RPM. Or if you've got a speedo converter issue, like if it's JDM or converted from miles an hour to, or kilometers to miles an hour, then that can cause that issue. It's like a limp mode thing going on there, so probably want to get a bit more information on that. If the speedo is not working, then fix that issue and that will fix the other issue. I need to smuggle into the EU. Yes. Yeah, Brexit's a bit of a pain. I do come across to Europe quite a lot, and normally driving, and normally because I'm driving a Subaru, it's not abnormal for me to have Subaru spares in there, but not smuggling, obviously. Right, question here. Cooper K. Okay, right, about a month ago I changed MAF and tuned my fuel to about 11.3. Today I thought I'd check how things are going and went for a spin with the AFR gauge. What I saw was AFR close to 12, long-term fuel trim was about -2.5. So you tuned it to 11.3 with the new MAF sensor. If you've got an oiled air filter, it might be making the MAF sensor dirty, which might be doing that. If you've got an AFR close to 12, it might be an air leak in the pipework between the MAF sensor and the turbo. It might also, if your lambda sensor on the car is reading slightly off, that's asking it, or asking the ECU to take out 2.5% of fuel that's contributing to your sort of closer to 12 rather than 11.3. I'd reset the ECU, take out or unplug the factory lambda sensor and see what it runs then, just to see what is actually going on. Okay. Bum, bum, bum. Right, Neil Brown. MAF failure on my Forester STR last week. Circuit A, high volts. Do I need to reset the ECU when fitting a new MAF? I had this exact same thing on a Forester STI that came down to the workshop today. High voltage reading on the MAF sensor. At idle it was reading something like 2.5 volts about. I think it was about 18 grams per second of air. Chucking loads of fuel in, clogged the plugs up, changed the MAF and it worked fine. Didn't reset the ECU, it just kind of relearns itself very quickly. But obviously I did reset the ECU to get rid of the codes at the end of it, but I also gave the map a tweak as well. It might be they're starting to become a little bit more unreliable. Generally the new age MAF is pretty reliable. Bit weird that there's two Forester STIs with the same issues. Evening Zed, hello mate. Right. Cool. Right, difference in total timing between 2 litre and 2.5 of the same compression. I've read 2.5 in theory runs more ignition. In my experience, the 2 litre runs more ignition timing. The 2.5s tend to run, probably 3 or 4 degrees less ignition timing on the whole. But yeah, this is the difference between classroom and real world. Theories say, oh yeah, 2.5 should run more ignition timing because the cylinder is bigger size and it takes a certain amount of extra time for the flame to travel all the way across the piston. It doesn't work like that. The cylinder shapes and the cylinder head shapes. Yeah, in my experience, 2.5 always runs less ignition timing. Yeah, I don't know. Bad fuel, unlikely to make a change with the MAF sensor. I've no idea, but it's just a bit weird. You're talking about, sorry, not the MAF sensor, the air fuel sensor. Yeah, it could be, but sensors wear out. So it could just be that the narrow band on the car is just wearing out a bit. Okay, MAF sensor, dry, free flow panel filter, no induction kit. Yeah, yeah, weird one. Yeah, everything works until it stops working. So it just could be a coincidence. But yeah, pop a new MAF sensor in there and it'll be good as gold. Obviously check out, make sure it's, not detting. So if you can make a set of det cans and get it on there and give it a run, then that'd be superb. Right, and Kit Thakur. Alright, hi Duncan. AEM 340 litre per hour versus Deutschwerks 300. Which is a better fuel pump in terms of reliability and tuning? I don't tend to see a lot of the Deutschwerks 300 pumps here. Most people either fit a 255 or a 340. A 255 is good enough up to 450 horsepower in my experience. So unless you're running more than that, I would stick with a 255. They're much more reliable. A Walbro 255 or Badger Cytec will run for many years. Change it when you change your cam belt. Whereas the 340s, I've had them dead out of the box, dead within a week, dead within a month. I don't find them reliable at all. Oh, right, okay, that's a big question. Right. Yeah, that's a big question as well. Right. Okay. Question from Tom. Power wise, how far would you confidently push an EJ255? It depends whether it's my car or a customer's car. If it's a customer's car, then 370 is probably where I would draw the line or recommend that they drew the line. Some people still want more than that on a 255. I strongly suggest that they don't. But if they want, then it's their choice if they're aware of the consequences. If it was mine, I would probably nudge it a little bit higher, but not too much higher. Probably 400 is the limit that I go to if it's an occasional sort of put your foot down. If you're going anywhere near a track, then definitely don't. But 370 is probably where I'd draw the line. Just about where the standard injectors run out on that. Okay. Right, yeah, big questions, Jan. Bigger bolt-on. Have you seen any 8cm versus 10cm turbine houses? 321V, great turbo, 8cm inlet on that. Worked really nicely. It was good balance. Worked better on a 2.5, to be fair, than a 2 litre. It was a little bit laggy on a 2 litre. A very nice FP Black that I tuned last week. Really good. Spooled up really quickly, and it made 602 on about a 40% mix of methanol. Which was good. 600, I think it was about 600 pounds per foot of torque, so it was fairly torquey. 2971 standard position turbo works really good. The Alex's VA STI had one of those on there, made 514. good amount of torque as well, really drivable, standard position, perfect in my opinion. 2971 is probably where I would go. Right, more questions. What they're flying in, right. Okay, building a bug-eye WRX saloon, but have a complete blob-eye to use with the build. Would there be any advantage in using the ECU from the blob-eye? Are they any better than the bug-eye? They're exactly the same. The hardware is the same. So if you were, you can flash on a blob-eye WRX file onto a bug-eye ECU, and it becomes a blob-eye ECU. There's no difference really. The blob-eye map is better, the ROM file is better, and it is better to use that. Yeah, I would say stick with the bug-eye WRX ECU. Use a blob-eye WRX ROM file. Because the boost control is slightly better, and it's a nicer, cleaner ROM. Right. Okay. 2015 STI here, stock airbox. Hi James. Just installed Tomei unequal length headers and up pipe and an NVIDIA downpipe connected to stock STI exhaust. You've changed a lot of things there that will be having an impact on how the air's taken out of the engine. So I would say try and keep it off boost, or at least proper boost. Ideally, if you can join the wastegate and the turbo compressor housing together with a single vacuum hose, then that would stop it making anything more than maybe half a bar of boost. But I would recommend thoroughly getting that mapped as soon as possible. Okay, if the PSI3 monitor is good. I used to use one of those on the race car. Right, fares. When blanking off standard recirculating valve, does the map need a check? No, there is no difference. I have questions relating to dump valves and whatever every week, and there really is nothing that can be changed in the map that would make it run any differently. Unless there was a leak before, or a leak now that there wasn't before, there is nothing you can change. And anyone that tells you otherwise is not doing you any favours at all, because if it's a dump valve, the pressure on the backside of the dump valve from the manifold holds the dump valve shut, so it's not making any difference while it's on boost. The only difference is that initial change of throttle position from closed to open, where you running a vent to atmosphere dump valve, you'll get a little blob of fresh air or extra air or richness. The blanking it off, it sometimes causes a little bit of air going backwards over the MAF sensor, and they don't like to read in reverse, so you can get some juddering, but there's no way you can change that in the map. There's no fields to say just ignore reverse flow. There's nothing that you can change in the map to make that any better. Meth mix for the 85, yeah, Scotty Max, yeah, back in the day. E85 I think is great for tuning with, but out the pump it varies so much depending on how long it's been sat in the tanks at the petrol station. Right. James CH. Hi Duncan, what's a safe BHP for 2005 WRX turbo? Sitting at 320 at the moment. Decat 3-inch straight through induction kit. But had it a few years. Can do with more power. Yep. That's a slippery slope. Generally, I presume you've got a VF35 or something similar on that. Generally, the gearbox is good for about 350-ish. The block is good for about 350, or the block, the rods and the pistons are good for about 350-ish. So, yeah, generally around 350-ish is going to be okay, probably. I've seen people run them at 400. I've mapped them for customers at, I think the highest I got on a standard WRX unopened long block on a 5-speed standard WRX gearbox was 490, and he ran around on that at that power level for a long time. It just depends on how close to the edge you want to be, but the edge isn't a defined point. It might change. You know, people blow gearboxes up at standard power at 220. Boom, boom, boom. PCV for high power build, ditch or keep it? I'd ditch it. There's something else to go wrong. Is a divorce downpipe better? I have yet to see a difference or a which one is better, or a bell mouth or a divorce downpipe. I've no idea. I don't think there is any difference. It's just how it looks. Right. Right. Okay, between high EGTs and high cylinder pressure, what would kill an engine the fastest? It kills different parts of the engine. The high EGTs predominantly going to start killing your valves, start hurting the edges of the pistons. You might get sort of uncontrolled detonation, pinking, knock, whatever you want to call it, sort of going on around the edges of the pistons, which sort of nibbles away at that. High cylinder pressure, the more power you run, it is more cylinder pressure. You know, you put things in there like nitrous, massive cylinder pressure. Using alcohol-based fuels actually lowers the cylinder pressure, but it's over a longer period, so it's like a higher average cylinder pressure. Knock, detonation, you get a big spike of cylinder pressure, so I would say that would be the thing that kills it, but high EGTs can cause detonation, knock, and that will give you the spikes in cylinder pressure. So neither are brilliant, but all power, you know, high power builds are going to have high cylinder pressure. You can either have that through heat, through boost, or ignition time, and it's going to do the same sort of thing. Ba-bum. Right, okay, any idea on if the I presume that's Manly ring gap, recommended specs are good, 2020 FA 20 overboard, 0.25 mil, bigger plans for the build. I don't know the answer to that. Generally, the piston manufacturers are pretty good when it gets to sort of saying what the spec should be for the ring gaps. If you're running like high power stuff and like putting nitrous in there and those sort of things, then generally use a slightly bigger ring gap. It's better to be slightly bigger than too small, and the ends of the rings sort of butt up against each other, and it then starts gouging a nice line down your bore. I would speak to someone that builds the FA20 engines, high power versions of it, in your part of the world, wherever you are. Okay, how are we doing time wise? Right, halfway through. Okay. Yes, I am well, thank you very much. Max horsepower you can push through a 2009 JDM 2-litre STI. The engine will take 500. What turbo upgrade would you recommend? There are lots of turbo options, but all of them, in my opinion, are going to be worse than what's on there as standard. You start putting a bigger turbo on there, you're losing the essence of what that car is, and that's a real high performance, point to point corners, quick acceleration, torque monster. You put a 450 horsepower, 500 horsepower turbo on there, it's just going to change the characteristics of the car so much that, in my opinion, it kind of ruins it a bit. There are lots of twin scroll or twin entry turbos that will do 450 to 500 that will get you there if you really want to go down that route. But I know a lot of people that have gone down that route and kind of wish that they stayed with the standard turbo. Fastline twin scroll, like a proper twin scroll VF version, will do 420. Did a video early on last year on how to do 400 with the Fastline turbos. So if you're wanting to get over that 400, then it's kind of like the best halfway house, in my opinion. Right. Alright, is a 3-inch decat downpipe worth the gain after a map tweak? On my JDM Hawk STI, I have more or less all the sporting mods. Yeah, 3-inch decat downpipe will release everything that's got, torque and horsepower. You may well find that you don't need to upgrade the turbo with the response and the basic wall of torque that you get from about 3,000 all the way up to the red line. Peter, eagerly awaiting the octane booster test. Yes, when I've got an engine in a car that is worth doing the test on, it's not worth doing it on the Forester SH. It would be an extreme, well, even more dull video than normal. I'm hoping that the Blitzen will be a really good test vehicle for a lot of these tests. But the Forester STI will be up and running soon, hopefully. Alright, what cams to go along the GTX 35? I thought the Kelford 272 cams that I had in my 235 were perfect. Didn't spoil the low end, but it really released things at the top end power wise. They were massively high lift, so I had to change the valves and also cut out on the back of the cylinder heads, or my machine shop did, so that the cam loads didn't hit the heads. They're massively high lift, but they worked really well, really well. Cooper K. Is there a big difference in stock WX gearbox rear bushing versus STI full bushing? I don't know what you mean. And I'm not sure that I would know the answer anyway. Yeah, I don't know. If you want to send a question to me with a bit more information in an email, then I will find out an answer for you. Right, Neil had MOT on the Classic last week and struggled to get emissions down due to exhaust. As 3 1/4 inch downpipe to 2 inch slip jointed. Had to put rag. Did they not have the really long probe that went into the exhaust? Normally it runs like a suction mechanism that will be able to pick out enough gas to analyse it. I haven't seen that as an issue. I've had a lot of emissions issues on Classics recently in the UK, where no matter what you do, if it's a Classic car, that it just fails on emissions. You could take the engine and everything out of it and put it in a newer car, so it is running exactly the same, and for some reason the emissions control system works, and they go through. Right, Paul Gray. Hi Duncan, over the winter months I want to recondition my turbo. On a scale of 1 to 10, how hard is it to remove? Anything to look out for? It depends whether it's been off before, or how long the bolts have been done up, or whether someone copper greased them when they were originally put on. If it's the original turbo that's been on there for 20 years, then you're going to break at least one stud. Make sure you got really good tools to do it, like 14 mils, rather than trying to do it with open spanners, or dodgy cheap sockets. Soak them very well for a long time beforehand with rust penetrating spray. I use Loctite, Loctite freeze spray, which seems to do a good job. How easy is it? It can be an absolute nightmare, or it can be reasonably easy. Depends how long the turbo has been on. Okay, so full wideband land on Link G4 active control. Yeah. We've had issues with some cars with the MOT stations that have got the new live software, and it'll be in parameters for like 20 seconds, and then it will just go whoop, and emissions will go up, and then it'll come back down. And this is again on a Link or an ECU where there is zero closed loop fuel corrections going on, so nothing is changing in the car, but something changes in the MOT emissions systems, whether it's someone at the other end going fail, or a coincidence, but we've had the same car over to a different test station. It sailed through. So I would probably say try a different MOT station, Neil, if you can. Okay. I've had that high EGT code before, but we 2.2k resistor in the plug hasn't come on again. Yeah, a bit of water in the fuel sometimes does that as well, but you can map out the EGT sensor on those. It's quite easy to do. Evening Grant. When's the link ALS flame table video coming up? That will be tomorrow, sir. Probably. It will be tomorrow. Right. Millions of questions. Right. Okay. Only reason I ask about the decants fill the O-in downpipe of the carrots with the fast spooling twin scroll isn't really there. Okay. Let me just see what the previous part of that question was. Okay. Yeah, it might be the cat in the standard downpipe is just starting to block up, and that's slowing things down, and as a result you're not getting the quick spool. On purpose. Right, highest RPM on a 2.1 litre you've done. On purpose or or accidentally. On my 235, not the same, but on the 235, so it'd be same crank and rods. You know, I was regularly seeing 9,000 RPM on the data logs on that. High revs take a lot of beating. Well, it takes a lot of life out of the engine, so I'd probably avoid it if you can. If the turbo's too big to produce the power band when you need it, then either go for a slightly smaller turbo or smaller sort of header pipe work going up to the turbo to speed it up, or nitrous. That will spool it up lovely. Alright, just curious about your thoughts on the basic build. O2 WRX, already have VF34 255 custom exhaust. What would you do? Where would you stop? Alright, if you've got a front mount intercooler on there, and it's been custom mapped to suit all the bits, pink injectors or dark blues from the Hawkeye, then you're probably at around 350 horsepower. I think that's where to stop. Concentrate on the brakes and suspension and getting it to be a nice car to drive, rather than taking it up to a level where it's just going to really start breaking stuff. What's your... Okay, right. Baron BTS. Question, strange issue. Occasionally, usually after a hardish drive, I get a flashing cruise light, but no check engine light. Flashing cruise light. What car is this on? If it's a flashing check engine light, then sometimes that can be cam or crank sensor that's just starting to play up. But they're hard to identify because the code doesn't stay in the ECU. Could be neutral position switch that is also doing the same. Let me know what the car is, Baron. Hi Lee, hey there mate. Just wanted to yeah, anyway, embarrassing for me to say it, but it's on the screen. Thank you very much, it was a pleasure. Glad I could help your car get running again, and you're going to the ring tomorrow, so very jealous. I'll make a decent coffee. Yeah, I can't do tea though. I don't do tea. I don't drink tea, so I don't know how it should taste. Right, what kind of ALS can you run with non-drive-by-wire? Yeah, kick a valve or jacked open throttle. Drive-by-wire is easier. Yeah, yeah, but the idle control valve generally doesn't let in enough air for the anti-lag to be like full-on anti-lag. The drive-by-wire setup can do it, but on the Link G4, I believe there's a bug in the software and the way that it operates the drive-by-wire throttle for the anti-lag. Yeah, throttle kicker is probably the easiest option, or jacking the throttle open a bit manually. Highest RPM 15,500. Christ. Yeah, that's probably an issue with the sensor rather than the engine actually hitting that. Normally, if you do that, there's bits of engine trying to escape. Right, Baron, highish engine light. Right, flashing cruise lights. Legacy GT hasn't got cruise unless you've aftermarket fitted it, so I'm presuming you mean flashing engine light. Yeah, I'd probably go along the lines of cam sensors to start with. So passenger side rear sensor would be the first point of call for me on that. If that doesn't solve it, then it might be, if the engine's recently built, there might be some very slight damage on the trigger, on the crank pulley, on the trigger pins, that's just occasionally sort of causing an issue. How are we doing? 10 minutes left, right. Yeah, I can't remember which video I did that covered it. Probably the 10 Subaru mods that actually work. But yeah, brakes and suspension, I always do them first, because they're the most important parts, in my opinion. Power can come later once you've got the brakes and the handling sorted. I have a 6-speed going to see WRX. One of the UJs on the prop shaft has play. In your experience, can the UJs be redone on these? I've not had to do it, so I haven't got any experience of that. But I would imagine they can be. They'll just be bushes. Take Sport in the UK are probably the best option for advice on that. Also been told the prop shaft from an auto same size could be used. Don't know. I don't think I've taken a prop shaft off an auto. Right, when would you choose a turbo with a 1.3 bar wastegate over one with a 1.1 bar wastegate? If I was wanting to run like 2 bar of boost, then trying to get that to a turbo with a 1.1 bar actuator to do that requires quite a lot of beating around the head to get it to do it. 1.3 bar, you're already closer to the mark. Or if you're having troubles controlling or working out how to control it with the ECU, I've seen people do that and just put a 1.5 bar actuator just because they can't figure out how the Subaru boost control system works. Problem with fitting a 1.3 bar actuator is you can't run any less than that. So if the engine and everything is capable of running 1.3 bar and a lot higher, then there's no real downside. Will I be at Go Japan on Sunday? Unfortunately not. No, I'm doing a 6-day week this week, so yeah, Sunday I'll be comatose on the sofa, probably. Ooh, right, 2016 WRX P0016 cam crank error. Kind of issues have you seen? Yeah, just normal cam crank sensor issues. On those, it'll be the cam sensors on the back of the heads. There isn't a cam sensor on the front. Unless that's the FA engine. No, I think that'd be a EJ engine on that. Normal trigger wheel issues where if it's been rebuilt and there's slight damage on the crank pulley, easy to do when you try to prise that off. When you're taking an engine apart, they can come off suddenly and drop on the floor, and before you know it, just a slight dink on that causes that issue. Okay, someone must have retrofitted cruise control, yeah. Yeah, if you've had problems with the cam sensors, I'd probably say they're not completely resolved. We can look at it when when I've got the laptop connected to it and take it from there. Boom, 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 boom. Right, so the cam crank error is when you decelerate or clutch in. I've got no idea why that would be related. Do you have Tatrix cable and laptop and be able to data log it? If you do, and you can, you might be able to spot what is going on if you log in the right fields. Yeah, FA20. Not sure why it would be related, Carl. I'm sorry. Lager or IPA? IPA for me. Right, should a 05 WRX have 5x100 or 5x114? 5x100 on the WRX. 05 STI has got 5x1x4. Right, where are we? Right, I think there are a few questions that I've missed. Right, Steve Farman is asking, if you join the academy, would you be able to advise on tuning other vehicles, including diesels? Other vehicles, yes. Diesels, you just turn up the boost, add more fuel, and that's done. It's boring tuning, because anyone can do it, in my opinion. Subarus are difficult and, as a result, more interesting to tune. I tune other vehicles. Right? I only put my Subaru stuff on here because I don't want Evo owners or Super owners in here sort of clogging up discussions and live chats about their cars. But I've mapped Supras, GTRs. What else have I done? Chasers, super cool chaser. But I don't do many of them. But I can give some advice. Yeah, not a problem. Right, done that question. We're almost at the end. Right, okay, this one. What would my go-to for a 400 power build and a 500 horsepower build, parts-wise? If it's on a 2 litre, then just the standard STI short block, standard STI heads will do the job, be fine, for either 400 or 500 horsepower. If it breaks, then I'd just buy another standard short block and pop that in there rather than spending chunks of money to forge an engine. If it's a 2.5, then 400 standard RA 257 block will do that. If it's 500, then it needs help. In my opinion, for each A257, to get 500 horsepower, you need to pin the block, so support the edges of the liners, because the liners are very thin, so they need support sort of further down the bore rather than just at the top of the closed deck plate. I don't think that does enough to solve that problem. But if you're doing 500 horsepower on a 2.5, forged pistons, forged rods, standard crank, standard nitrided crank will be absolutely fine. And there's lots of other choices for other bits like turbos and what have you. Okay, Martin Bennett, turbo G30 with the wastegate stuck open on a standard engine. If the wastegate's stuck open, you'll probably only get 0.1 of a bar anyway. So I think that's probably fine to drive around until it's mapped. It will be absolutely gutless. If the wastegate is actually open or we've taken the arm off. Not sponsored. Did you measure the exhaust port exit yet? I'll refresh my memory as to what that question was about. I can't remember. Oh, right, okay. Bam has asked some questions. He's finally made a live stream, so I'll answer his questions and then I'll call it a day. And that one from Jan. Right. Okay, finally made a live stream. Woohoo. Right, 2002 W8's been tuning using my videos, which is good. Knock sensor issue I can't figure out, which is right. So the knock sensor's going wild, taking out loads of timing. Generally means that it's hearing a noise, and the noise that you normally find is causing that is a heat shield rattling. Up pipe heat shield in particular is the one that gets the most abuse because it's the hottest part of the headers. So they're only tack welded on at the top and the bottom, and they often just break. And that rattling around at a certain point, ECU is just going to think that that's knock. It's going to take out 2.8 degrees to try and correct it. Will make no difference. Then it'll get into full-on panic mode and take all of it out. That tends to be the issue that I see. Heat shields, or I've been seeing it with fuel pipe clips that are just vibrating on the manifold at a certain point, at a certain RPM, and it just gets into full panic mode again. So I would say it's a noise, predominantly outside of the engine, but inside the engine bay. Right. Yeah, will I ever build a silly car build again? Yes, I have plans, but not the time or the money or the motive. Well, I have got the motivation, but I have plans, and it is wildly silly. And yeah, I think it'd be rather spectacular as well. But that's like next year, probably the year after. It'll be interesting, very interesting. So yes, watch this space for that one. But I'm used to saying soon, so this won't be soon. This will be 2-3 years down the road. But yeah, it will be very silly, very silly. Right, that's it. I'm calling it a day. It's not going to be huge power. It won't need to be huge power. But I'm not going to say anything else. Right. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.